On behalf of FARA and the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, Friedreich's Ataxia program, welcome. We're so excited to have so many people participating today, both in person and joining us online. For those of you who are online, I'm telling you, we have a packed room here today. This is the first time ever we've had to close registration for an FA symposium. All of the main sessions today are going to be live streamed, and we encourage all of you joining us online to also submit questions into the chat. We're going to be watching them so that we can hopefully during the Q&A share some of your questions for those of you joining us online. It is important that these symposiums not only be an opportunity for learning and information sharing, but also a time for our community to connect. And so I would really encourage all of you to, make sure you know everyone at the table you're sitting at. If you don't know those folks who you're sitting with, during the break, introduce yourself. If you know everybody, if you were one of those people who sat at a table with all the same people you sat with last year, challenge you at lunch to make sure you meet somebody new. In building the agenda today for the symposium, we're trying to cover a wide range of topics. We also put a lot of information into your registration packets. And I would just really like to thank Andrea Garcia for helping provide Spanish translations of our agenda and some of our information that we shared. Thank you, Andrea. So we do have a packed agenda. We're going to start out with an overview of and some updates on clinical management. We have 2 pipeline sessions this year talking to kind of the research that's advancing and clinical trials. And then we're going to have a Living with FA session panel on travel and accessibility. We're going to hear from a researcher at Harvard Medical School about using digital measures to assess movement in FA in the afternoon. We'll have our second pipeline session. Then we're going to have some breakouts. You should be thinking about which breakout session you want to attend in the afternoon, finding your why and navigating the path along the way, or another Living with FA panel on sports, hobbies, and interests. And then at the end of the day, we'll have one final session kind of talking about our global research and global community. And there's a special exciting addition at the end of the agenda. So I encourage you to stick around all day and not leave early. I really want to thank our sponsors. Biogen, our presenting sponsor, and I hope folks take time to go over to the Delta Biogen simulation session, the future of air travel and accessibility. This is really a fun, unique thing to add. I ask you not to go over to the session, go over to the booth during the session, but during the breaks. Would also encourage you to go visit all of our sponsors who have tables out in the lobby area. Lexio is here, Astellas, Larimar, PTC, Stealth, Design, all have representatives here today. They're here, they want to meet you, they want to hear from you, so please go and visit them. We can't do this symposium or our webinars throughout the year without their generous support. We're able to offer these programs free of charge to the FA community because they help us underwrite, all of the costs of doing these kinds of symposiums. And so really grateful for their partnership. For those of you who are new, and this year we had more than 50 people indicate that they are first-time attendees at this symposium. I want to share with you a little bit of background about FARA. So Ron and Rachel Bartek. Ron, where are you? There he is. Oh, of course, right in front of me. Ron and his wife, Rachel, founded FARA in 1998, shortly after their son, Keith, had been diagnosed. And they were joined by other FA families and researchers and set on a course of advancing research for FA to bring treatments forward. They immediately recruited several scientists to join them. And the first thing they did was organize a research conference. That first research conference was in 1999. And they scrambled to find researchers to bring into the room. Fast forward to a month from now, we're going to be in London at the International Congress for Ataxia Research, where we've also had to close registration because we're over 600 researchers. We believe that we can make transformative change when we bring our community together, all of you and the research community. FARA has instilled a sense of urgency in the work that we do because we hear how important time is for you every single day. We stay focused on a mission to treat and cure FA. We launched a new website this year. If you haven't visited, please do. Felicia, Laura, Megan, Maureen, Chandra worked really hard to update all of the information that we need to share with all of you. There is a new clinical trial finder. There's a new pipeline page. There's a ton of information on our website. And I am grateful to this communications team for making sure that we're able to communicate with you in real time, all the great things that are happening in our community. Over the past 20 years, thanks to all of you and many more people in our community, we're able to grow this research effort. What does it mean to fund research? It means bringing investigators into the FA community with new ideas. It means supporting researchers who dedicated their whole career to FA and helping us bring new treatments forward. In this next segment I'm going to talk through, I want to share some research updates. I realize some of you are new to the community, so just humor me for this brief dive into some science, but hopefully later in the day, this will all start to make a little bit more sense. But I want to share just some of the ways the research is advancing how we think about FA and what we know. So shortly after the gene was identified, there was a lot of work to figure out, what does frataxin do? Why is it important? There were ideas about mitochondria and iron. The first research study I was involved in, I collected blood samples from people in the FA community to measure iron in the blood. It was mostly normal, but this led to new ideas, new hypotheses about what is frataxin doing. Today, there's broad consensus that frataxin is an essential part of the machinery in the cell that makes protein cofactors called iron-sulfur clusters. And these iron-sulfur clusters are important in many cellular functions, metabolism, energy production, DNA repair, and these all become targets for how we think about new therapies. Our understanding of frataxin and its function has evolved and gotten more and more sophisticated than when we first started trying to study this underlying pathology of what causes FA 30 years ago. But we are still learning. And now there's recent data coming forward from many of the researchers at CHOP that we might need to look beyond the role of iron-sulfur clusters. And frataxin may even have additional functions within the cell. And that's exciting and important because that continues to expand targets for new therapies. There's also more and more understanding about this role for inflammation. If you read any of the sort of popular scientific news or medical news, you see inflammation all the time. For a long time, we didn't think inflammation played a role in FA. But there's more evidence now that certain immune cells in the brain that are responsible for protecting and supporting neurons might show signs of activation. Well, what does this mean? Is this a consequence of the underlying disease process? Is this a protective mechanism? Does it contribute to pathology? We're funding research now to answer these questions. And if modulating inflammation is indeed a potential therapeutic strategy, we can borrow from other diseases where inflammation plays a key role and continue to build out our treatment approaches. So these are just a few examples of how funding research continues to evolve our understanding of FA and hopefully lead to new treatment approaches. This is another way to look at the research FARA funds in kind of different areas or different buckets. And there's a lot going on this slide, but just over here on the left, kind of the blue and the orange and the yellow bars are all research projects that are funding drug discovery or new treatment development and trying to put new treatments into the treatment pipeline. We know it's going to take a cocktail approach to treat FA, and we're going to continue to keep filling that treatment pipeline with new approaches until we achieve our mission. We still continue to fund some of that basic science that I just talked about to help us further understand the disease. Each time we learn something, there's new questions that get asked. And then a big effort has been on continuing to develop biomarkers and tools that we can use in clinical trials to know quickly and effectively if a drug is working. And just want to shout out to all the community members who've participated in these studies, especially Track FA. This was a huge initiative for us to take on to do a global neuroimaging study. More than 200 people in our community have participated and participated in for 3 years, getting 3 scans, brain, spinal cord, sometimes taking up to 2 hours in a scanner. And we're just really grateful. This study's had an amazing retention rate. People who enrolled have really stuck with it, and we're almost there. We're entering year 3 and look forward to sharing data with you soon from the Track FA study. We also put a lot of our funding into natural history. What is natural history? Anyone with a diagnosis of FA can participate in a natural history study. It's where we collect clinical data and track the disease over time. We see people on an annual basis to track all of these clinical assessments and assessments of how you report things are changing in FA. And we do this through clinical sites within our global clinical consortium, the FAGCC. We currently have over 30 sites globally that are participating in this natural history study and in the global consortium. I'll talk a little bit more about this later today, but just for those of you who are saying, wait a second, FAGCC, what's that? You might be familiar with what we call FA-COMS, or the FA Clinical Outcome Measure Study, or the Clinical Research Network. It's the same thing, but we've grown it and expanded it. We've partnered with the researchers in Europe who are doing the same study called EFACS and put them together into the FAGCC and a unified natural history study that we call Unify. So we're going to try and talk more about Unify going forward. And when I say that, that's what, when you hear Unify, that's what it means. It's what was FA-COMS now going forward with a bigger focus. Why is natural history important? Not only does it inform the understanding of the disease, it builds infrastructure to have clinical trials. Also informs clinical management and clinical care, because clinicians who are dedicated to studying FA are conducting these natural history studies. And in many cases, they're also the places where clinical care is delivered. And this natural history study has been critical to helping us get treatments approved, both because we learn how to follow FA through those clinical assessments, but also having natural history data can be used as comparator arms to interventional studies. We put a big effort this year on pediatrics, and I just want to give a shout out to Ron Bartek. We hear you. We know we need to get treatments to individuals as soon as they are diagnosed with FA. And there are lots of different ways in which we're trying to do that. But Ron led a huge effort at a national level this year to engage the FDA in a conversation about how to advance inclusion of pediatrics earlier in clinical development. And this work is still ongoing. Our advocacy is a huge part of what we do. And thank you all. More than 100 advocates participated in our 6th annual Hill Day last week. Bridget Brennan, thank you. Bridget leads this effort every year, making sure that the legislation and appropriations that are going to help support this effort get in front of our representatives, and we get bills passed that make a difference. Accessible air travel was something we advocated for last year, and it's exciting to see this booth here today featuring accessible air travel. The CDMRP is another result of your advocacy by getting hereditary ataxia added to this new funding mechanism that has generated more than $24 million in new research money for ataxia in 2 years. Finally, I just want to really impress upon you, it takes all of us. I'm so excited by this packed room today. So many people joining us online. It's not just today, though. To achieve our goals of treatments and a cure for FA, we all need to continue to work together and do our part, play our piece in a puzzle, whether it's advocacy, raising awareness, participating in research, or fundraising. Your stories are powerful. Your experiences are so important. When we advocate, we bring meaningful resources and change to accelerate research and drug development. Participation in research is essential. We will not have approved treatments without clinical trials and without your participation. We have 2 panels today with drug development partners advancing treatments. And it's not just those clinical trials, it's also your participation in those natural history studies and biomarkers. I encourage you to engage today with the research community. Help them understand FA through your lived experience. Fundraising. What an amazing day yesterday was, not only in weather, but in fundraising. We had over 30 teams that represented FA families, researchers, and industry partners. So many of you have been doing this for years, and we are grateful. Your sustained commitment to raising funds for research has gotten us to where we are today. We are equally grateful to the new families who, when faced with this challenging diagnosis, realize they need to fight back and join us in this effort. Yesterday morning at 7 a.m. when I showed up to the ride site, right there under the registration tent, the first faces I saw were Mark and Maggie, parents, newly diagnosed children on their FA journey. This weekend, Jack Muhammad, a 14-year-old boy, and his family in Las Vegas hosted his second Epic Game Day to raise funds for research. Jack's a chess aficionado who loves playing board games with his family. Jack's mom, Mary, said, After receiving Jack's diagnosis, we sat down as a family and discussed what was truly important to us. We wanted to spend time making memories and enjoying the company of the people we love. What better way to do that than playing games with friends and family and supporting research to cure FA? Thank you, Jack and Mary. So I hope this overview gives you a better understanding of FARA, who we are, what we're trying to do, and I hope it motivates you to continue to be active and engaged in this community. At this time, I'd like to ask our panelists for the next session, the clinical session, to come up, Dr. Lynch, Dr. McCormick, Dr. Lynn. And while you guys are coming up to the stage, I just also want to take a minute to thank some of the FARA staff who made this possible. We did 4 research symposiums this year in person and 3 online. And it would not be possible without Jamie and Jenna, who find these places for us to meet, who do a lot of the logistics, getting everything planned. Jamie, thank you. I think Jenna's outside. But I want to also really acknowledge Kellen Madden, our manager of patient engagement, who has spent so much time making sure that the educational content that we have for these symposiums is important to you, relevant information, well prepared. Kellen has worked tirelessly on all of these events all year long. And so Kellen, thank you very much. And I have some flowers for you. I don't know where you are. I can't see you, but. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave.
Yeah, very good. There.